Good morning. Happy Palm Sunday. Do you say Happy Palm? I don't know. Hey, my name is Pete, and I serve as the lead pastor here at Woodland. And today we're celebrating Palm Sunday with the kids and all that stuff. Not necessarily with the message, though. We'll get in here in a second. A little bit of a different take this morning than you might hear on a normal Palm Sunday, because really we're still in the process of, as a church, walking through the Gospel of Matthew together. We've been on this now for, I guess, a couple months, and the whole idea is looking at this story of Jesus, first book of the New Testament, that tells about the way that he arrived as a king to lead us, to show us something, and not just to lead us just in general, but to lead us into the kind of life we were made for, a revolution of what it means to think about goodness and blessing and all these kinds of ideas. And we've spent a whole month or so walking through the first few chapters where Matthew establishes the argument that this is actually the king. And then there's this pivot where Jesus sits on a mountain, and all the people gather around him, and he begins to teach. We call it the Sermon on the Mount. 3 chapters of Jesus just walking through what his picture and revelation of life looks like. If you're gonna be part of this kingdom where he's king, what is it like? What's it about? And the first thing he did was he flipped the script on what it even means to be blessed or have goodness in your life. To people who thought you had to be one of the 1%ers and be important or powerful to have goodness in your life. He said, no, it doesn't. None of that matters. If you'll follow me, I'll show you how goodness and blessing can come about regardless of the circumstances around you. Because so many of the things that bring goodness are really more about our own personal decisions and choices and how we think and feel about and act. And so he talks about how, the whole story of the Jewish people that he was a part of, the entire Old Testament was really pointing to this idea that God was calling a group of people to say, trust me and live differently the way I want to show you to live. And you'll actually find something so much better, and then the rest of the world will want in on it and follow you. And so when he shows up, one of the things he has to do is just, okay, what about all the rules and the laws and all that stuff? He said, yeah, those things were good, but what I'm here to do is not get rid of them, but to fulfill them. Let me show you what they were about. Let me show you their purpose and why God gave them to you in order to actually help you bring about the kind of life he's calling you to. And so we have this law, or Torah, the law of Moses, and there's some interaction with it. But what Jesus does is he says, okay, let's talk about the law. And if you were to look at like a big high-level perspective of the Sermon on the Mount, what you'll see is he ends up hitting on a lot of like the kind of the big, especially like the 10 Commandments. He says, I'm not here to throw these out the window, but I want to talk about what they really mean for you. So let's go with the first one. You've heard it said, like, don't commit murder, right? Okay, we talked about that. But like, is that just the thing? That's all you gotta do? He's like, no, that's the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more beyond this. Yeah, I don't want you to kill people. We're good with that. But I want to talk about the way that this even includes how you think and feel in your heart. Because we're trying to find what it looks like to live the kind of life you're created for and experience the goodness of God. That doesn't just start with not killing people. It starts with what are you doing with anger inside of you? So if you really want to find a blessed life, there's a different way to think. The bar is a little higher than just don't stab somebody. And so if you've just joined us the first time, all that stuff is available. You can catch up on all that on our app, our website, all the messages that have walked this far. But today, he continues this idea, and he grabs another one of the big 10 Commandments, one of the laws of Moses. He says, all right, we're talking about murder, now let's talk about this one. It's this idea of adultery, which is a pretty heavy topic. And he says this, we're gonna be reading in Matthew chapter 5. If you have your Bibles, you can open them up to Matthew chapter 5. If not, we'll put it on the screen. If you're watching online, it'll magically appear right here somewhere. It says this, Matthew chapter 5, we're gonna read in 27. He says, you have heard it said in the law, you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his own heart. He's going the inside. So if your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out. Ow. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than your whole body to be thrown into hell. If your right hand causes you to stumble, just cut it off, throw it away. Better to lose one part of your body than your whole body to go into hell. And then he says, kind of a really difficult passage. He said, it's been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. He's quoting the Old Testament law that we'll talk about in a minute. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality or unfaithfulness makes her the victim of adultery. You're doing it to her by doing this. And if you marry a divorced woman committing adultery, he's changing the bar, changing our perspectives on things. Which is not your typical Palm Sunday message, right? The kids came by with, Hosanna. And I'm like, lust and adultery. Okay, glad I brought my friends today. And I'm sure we can agree, like, okay, lust's the problem, but Jesus seems to be kind of going like nuclear option here, like that escalated quickly. Gouge your eye out, chop your hand off. That's the kind of behavior I take to avoid family pictures. But clearly Jesus is like calling us to something extreme here. He's got, like, there's a big deal here. So what I want to do this morning is kind of two things. First, as we've been doing throughout this whole study of Matthew, just talking about the text itself. What is he saying here? What does he mean here? Because there's some weird stuff happening. But to not stop there. This morning, I don't ever want to just stop there. I then want to ask, well, what does this actually mean for us? Like, okay, we're not cutting our hands off and plucking our eyes. How do we apply this? What is he saying, and how do I make it something about real in my life? I want to do both those things this morning, and we'll do that together. But first, let's just pray. Let's just take a moment and invite God to speak. If you're with us for the first time, you're visiting, I'm not asking you to pray out loud, don't worry. Just take a moment, maybe in your own mind, your head, just say, God, I'm listening. Let's pray together. Lord, we are here for you. We're here because there's something real inside of us that wants that which is good, that which you've made, that which you've called us to. There's a moment where I think we all come to God, and I'm certainly there, where we just say, what do you have? It must be better. And even in tough passages like this, Jesus, we're ready to hear what you have to say. And if it's better, if it's going to take us somewhere better than where we've been running, we'll say yes and we'll follow. So help us understand it, help us apply it, and experience the goodness of you through it. We pray this in your name. Amen. Amen. All right, so let's dive into a fun, heavy topic. And I want to start with this idea here. Over the kind of course of this whole series, Sermon on the Mount, we've been talking about this idea of like revolution. We've kind of compared the American Revolution. And I talked about how even going all the way back 3,000 years ago, when Moses gave this law from God to the people, there was something revolutionary about it. It was wild and radical in so many ways to the world. But I do want to clarify, and it'll help now, there were parts of it that were super revolutionary, especially like being priests and how different they looked. But some parts of it actually weren't what you would call unique. I mean, if you were to go back in time 3,000 years ago, it's not like everyone was like, oh, murder whoever you want. The Jews were like, no, don't murder people. Every culture had some kind of don't kill people law. That was pretty common. Now, where the Jewish people had a very different sense was most murder laws in the ancient world were just like, yeah, you probably, I don't know, it's not good. I want people murdering me. The Jewish people actually, their law showed that it's because we all are image bearers of God and we all have dignity and value, which would eventually go on to undermine so many of the ways that people treat each other. So there was something revolutionary, but do not murder. Everybody had that. In fact, continuing on, we have a lot of like texts and like scrolls and like, pieces of clay with like old laws from Egypt and Mesopotamia, Hammurabi, lots of kind of stuff that show adultery was one of the most common laws in the ancient world. And in the time of Jesus, which would have been 1,000 years later, the Greeks and the Romans had very clear laws against adultery. So maybe you think like, oh, so yeah, we've just always known this is something you're not supposed to do, it's bad. Well, there's one small difference, and this takes it down a little bit of an uncomfortable road about the world and the history, but it's the truth, and so it can help. So when they use the word adultery in the ancient world, and even in the ancient world, I would say even up until maybe like the last few thousand years or so, adultery meant something very specific. It was a man stealing another man's property. Specifically, his wife, who was his property. Adultery laws in the ancient world were primarily theft. They were property laws. So you're like, a little weird. Yeah. When they used laws against adultery, they weren't making statements or comments about whether there was anything like right or wrong or good or bad about how you behaved sexually at all. It had nothing to do with that. It actually was a social issue related to property rights, legitimacy, the heir of the family. In the ancient world, society was organized by families, much more than they are today. Whole cities and towns could be structured into clans of hundreds of people who are all part of one family unit with a patriarch above it. And a woman who is married but is unfaithful or has an affair with another man risks not only questions about children's legitimacy and all these things, but even dishonor and shame, which you might look at that and say, so wait, the man can do it, but it's shameful the woman can do it? Guess who was running the world back then? Men. That was the world they lived in. A man in the ancient world pretty much could do whatever he wanted with whoever he wanted as long as she wasn't married. They didn't think that there was something, they didn't think that gods cared who you had sex with. It doesn't matter. Just make sure she's not married and you're messing with society's rules. It was all about her marital status. And so when this law is part of the Jewish Torah, don't commit adultery, there's a very familiar, it even says later, don't covet your neighbor's wife. There's some sense to that, but the Jewish law actually kind of takes it a bit deeper and starts to actually show, hold on, we were talking about more than just property rights here. There's actually something about the nature of how God created us. The Jewish law includes Genesis 1 and 2 and 3 that tell the story of God creating a man and a woman and bringing them together to become one flesh, and sex being a part of that relationship. And he gives this whole list in Leviticus of people you're not supposed to have sex with, and God's not happy if you do. Like, it changes the culture a little bit, but still, if you look at their history, just like read the Old Testament, like it kind of looks like a lot of the Jewish men didn't read the law themselves. Even the greatest King David, like saw a woman taking a bath on a roof and had her husband killed. And what you actually see is you see a whole history of men, even Jewish men who believed in the law, finding ways to kind of get around it. Whether it's literally like murdering husbands or polygamy, I'll marry a bunch of women. Or just having, concubines and all these kinds of things. We're like, well, I'm not committing adultery. And then you had this thing start to happen, which was you had men who started saying, okay, well, God told me not to, step outside of marriage, and I want to, so I'll just divorce her, kick her to the curb, and then I'm not breaking the law. And you had this serious problem where women weren't educated, didn't own property, didn't have social rights, and you're just gonna kick her out of your house? She would be destitute. She'd have to beg for a living. What a terrible thing to do. But this man's like, I don't care. I want to sleep with somebody else. So this is why Jesus' words hit so hard. Like, hold on a second. You think you can just divorce your wife because you want to sleep with somebody else and you're not breaking the law? Really? That's what you think? That's totally and completely misunderstanding what this law is even about. You're totally missing the point. No, you can't do that. And now I know that even saying that and even reading that passage brings up all kinds of stuff for many of you, even in the room or watching online. And I want to say two things. The first is this. I need to ask maybe for like some grace with you in this. I would love to, if I could spend the whole time this morning just unpacking God's view of divorce and what this passage means and how we apply it, I would. It's just not, like we're kind of trying to walk through it faster. I want you to know there is a lot of cultural context to this. It specifically talks to this issue of men just getting rid of their wives because they want to sleep with somebody else. But there is a lot here. And so we are going to come back to this later. We're going to do a podcast on Mondays. I want to let you know that we're going to dig into that passage a little bit more tomorrow on the podcast where I have more space and kind of some room to really kind of navigate it. But just know this morning what Jesus is getting at is this attempt that people had to look at the law this way. They would look at the law like, okay, here is the law. It's right here, right? Anything on the other side of this is breaking the law, right? So I know that I can't go past this. So let's figure out how close I can get to it, just as long as I don't go over it, because going over it is the problem. If I go over the law, then God's mad at me. But if I get as close as I can, then I'm good. And that's kind of how we tend to think about laws. Even the word rule or law often does that to our brains. And maybe we need to separate that from the Bible, because it can really be a problem. That I can do whatever I want up to the moment, as long as I don't cross this sacred thing or something, then I'm fine. It's as long as I don't drive this fast or drink this much before I do, I won't get arrested and I'm good, I'm fine, I'm breaking laws. Well, yeah, but the purpose of those laws is just keeping people safe. It's not about whether you did just not enough to get arrested. Are you considering your neighbor and yourself in the way that you're driving, right? There's a reason or a purpose behind the law. You might say this one's coming up, almost April 15th. How much random stuff can I deduct before I risk prison? Get right up to the law. I didn't break the law. What about integrity and just, right? What's the purpose of these laws? It's not just to see how we can skate them, it's whatever. And so Jesus is looking at us and saying, hold on, you think because you didn't murder or physically cheat on your spouse that you haven't broken the law? You're actually kind of misunderstanding law in general. Because when he said I came to fulfill it, I think that it's such a big idea we need to grasp about Jesus. He's I want to revolutionize the way that you live and think, and I want you to see the law is just a weird word. I don't even know if it's a right word. The Hebrew word Torah actually means something more like guide or direction, like this way. It's like saying there's a path that you can walk that's gonna lead to destruction. At the end of it is murder. But the path itself is all the anger and junk in your heart. Well, if you think, I can walk the whole thing as long as I don't stab anybody, it's no, you're missing the whole point. That whole path is destructive. Walking in that direction is gonna lead to ruin and mess your life up. So let's not even walk that way. Let's walk this way. It's like a signpost, turning your eyes to a different way of living, a different way of thinking about relationships and people and what's going on inside of you. It starts with what's in your heart. And in the same way, he picks up on the second one. He says, so you think all God cares about is that you don't do this one act and everything up to it is fine? It's no, that's just a pathway that you don't even want to walk on. The whole path is poison. There's traps everywhere. Let's talk about even the thoughts and the feelings and the stuff going on inside of you that would even lead you to that moment. All of it is unhealthy for you. All of it's going to be a problem. So now I've come to show you the purpose of that law. It wasn't just that you didn't cross that one line. It was that you just stopped walking that way and you walk this way instead. A different way of thinking about sex and marriage, as well as murder and anger and all this other kind of stuff. So just like murder starts in the heart and then becomes a serious issue, it's already a serious issue, he does the same thing with adultery, another one of the 10 Commandments. You've heard it said, verse 27, you shall not commit adultery. There's the line, you got the line. Guys, I'm not talking about the line. I'm talking about the pathway of what it even means to see yourself, see that part of being a human, the part of you that wants to have sex and behave sexually and think sexually, that part of you being human. There's a pathway that leads to brokenness. And it's not just this one act, it's just allowing that stuff to go unchecked and dominate you. To even look at a woman lustfully, you've already committed, you're already on the pathway of unhealth and something God didn't desire you for. And this doesn't mean, I want to make sure you hear this, because this can get all weird and guilty on us. He's not saying, if you have a bad thought about a woman, God's ticked off at you and you're going to hell right now. That's kind of missing the point. It's as much misunderstanding the law as the other side. He's saying, God is so concerned for you. And if marriage is part of your life, for your marriage. But even if it's not, still you're being a healthy, whole human being the way he created you for. Your entire life, your thoughts and your actions. And he wants to put you down a path that aligns with how he made you. And he's saying, even letting that stuff inside your mind is unhealthy. Not just the fact that you did this one thing. In this case, he's saying, let's go back to the law. Let's go back to Torah, where it shows us the purpose of sex is part of this relationship you have with someone you're married to, for having children and for enjoying the relationship. That's what it's for. And anything outside of that is outside of what God intended or designed. And thus, if you live, and here's the big idea for this whole thing, if you live outside of God's intentions and plan for your life, you're not going to experience the goodness he has for you. This isn't about like guilt and making God angry. This is about God saying, I made you, and this way is actually the way to go to find goodness. That path is not. And so this helps us make sense, I think. If God is for us, if God is for you, and Jesus is for you, and he's saying these things for our benefit, it then kind of helps us understand a little better when he gets kind of nuclear here. Verse 29, if your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. Better for you to lose one part of your body than your whole body to be thrown into hell. Now this is a little controversial, and it's okay. The word hell in his language was literally the name Gehenna of a place where dead bodies were thrown and you weren't allowed to go to. So your whole body being thrown into Gehenna has this connotation of death. Like better to be maimed than die. Better to have life that's a little bit less than you might have than complete destruction and death. But there also is, even in the next verse, he kind of almost seems to tag it, and there's this sense of also eternity, like eternal separation from God, and there's the consequences now and forever. So, like, he's not messing around here, and it's a little bit extreme. He's telling you, like, I'm like harsh, like, let's go, something big deal here. And as I was studying it, I was thinking about it. I had this idea of like, because my brain is dumb, I was thinking about extreme, maybe kind of almost sometimes mean language about cutting things off and up. And I had this thought, is anyone in here familiar with Dave Ramsey? Do we have any Dave Ramsey fans in the house? There's Thane. Okay, all right. If you don't know who Dave Ramsey is, let me fill you in. Okay, so Dave Ramsey is a Christian financial guru who has a call-in radio show program where people call in and tell him their financial woes, and then he gives them advice. He also offers a class that churches like ours actually offer. We offer a financial peace class here. It's good. Now here's the thing. Dave Ramsey is famous for two reasons. One, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, he knows finances and stuff. He's pretty smart when it comes to how to best use your money. But Dave Ramsey is also popular because he's what we would call a straight shooter. And that's putting it nicely. He's less Mr. Rogers and more Simon Cowell. You know when you used to watch American Idol just because you'd love seeing him blow people up because we're horrible people? That's Dave Ramsey when it comes to finances. People will call in and they will give like these ridiculous stories of just terrible decisions. And then Dave just like, oh, here he goes. I have like, next caller, please. And so like, hi, Dave. My wife and I are part-time circus clowns. We make $17,000 a year combined, and we're trying to figure out how to pay off our $4.7 million home and the 3 BMWs we lease. We also have $127,000 from credit card debt from spending 6 months in Jamaica. What's your advice, Dave? And you hear it, and you're like, I need some popcorn for this one. You just like, get him. And he'll just like go off on these poor people. It's just, sir, you are an idiot. Like, if financial bad decisions were exercise, you'd be an Olympic athlete. You're like, ooh, you don't have a budget problem, you have a reality problem. Dave Ramsey is kind of this like Southern Dr. Phil, only a little bit angrier, and it's kind of fun. Like, sweet sassy molassy, man. Your decision making's the real circus around here. Sell the clown noses, sell the house, sell the cars, and then he always says, and cut up those credit cards. So if you've taken financial peace, it always ends, we have this huge pair of scissors, cut up your credit cards, cut it off, get it out of there. And there's this line that Dave Ramsey always uses, like all the time. He's super popular for it. And it sounds like I'm a huge Dave Ramsey. My wife loves him. I'm kind of whatever. Thane loves him. But Dave Ramsey has a line that I do appreciate. He says this. He says, live like no one else now so you can live like no one else later. Which is just kind of a little clever way of reminding us of the importance of investing in the future. That the future ahead of us depends on the things that we do today. And the wisdom of making what are often tough decisions right now that will pay off and make your life better down the road. And financial issues are such a big part of that. Financial investing and wise, frugal spending, if you think about it, is a sacrifice. It is, right? It's a sacrifice. You're giving up something that you want now. Because if I have money in my pocket, I can spend it on whatever I want. I can make myself happy. I'll give whatever feel good. If I'm like, no, I'm going to put it in the bank. Oh, that's not fun. That doesn't feel good. But you're giving it up knowing it's gonna pay off down the road. Every time you, maybe depending on where you're at in the season of life, if you put money into your retirement fund, you're basically saying, today I have this job, I'm able to work well, I wanna keep working, but there's gonna come a moment in the future when I'm older, I don't wanna work, not able to work. There might even be disasters coming up that I gotta be ready for. So I'm gonna sacrifice something today in order to be ready and prepared for a future. And what's so interesting about the way that he verbalizes it, it's a comparison to how the rest of the world lives. That's why I like it. Live today like other people aren't living. Because oftentimes what the world wants to tell you, the basic message of life around us is just do what feels good, follow your heart. We talked about that in the last series in the fall. Feels good, spend on yourself, have fun. If you want to have sex with somebody, go ahead and do it. That's kind of the way, and he's, what if we did it differently? And there's Jesus saying, what if we did it differently? And yeah, you might be like, is this a money talk or a sex talk? I don't know, it's both, whatever. Here's the deal. There's a principle, and the principle is, I think, what matters for us. Because the same principle that Dave Ramsey is giving us by saying, hey, what if you were to sacrifice some things now, even when the rest of the world isn't, in order to actually be able to live better than they are in the future? I think Jesus is actually saying something very similar. He's looking at our thought life and the way that we oftentimes, just the same way we want to take money and just spend it and do whatever feels good. He's saying, hey, we do the same thing sexually. Oh, this feels good, I want this will be the moment. What if you actually made a decision not to just engage in all of that and let it run wild in order to have something better in the future? Live differently now than maybe the world is telling you to live, and watch it pay off down the road when you're walking a different path that leads to a better direction. And just like someone like Ramsey uses really forceful language, sometimes kind of mean, he can be pretty mean, encourages us to cut up credit cards. Here's Jesus saying, man, cut up anything. Cut off anything. You know, those credit cards that you have in your pocket that are leading you to spend money you don't have and get yourself in trouble, just get rid of them now. Well, what other things in your life might be doing the same thing? And yeah, I think he's being figurative about chopping off your hand. It's hyperbole, he's being over the top. But there's still a principle here, and here's the principle. He's calling you to think about what you do now, how affects what happens later. And the Apostle Paul said it this way. This is a powerful statement. I think Apostle Paul and Dave Ramsey would have got along. Paul says this in Galatians 6, do not be deceived. Wake up. David, wake up. You're an idiot. Stop lying to yourself. Stop thinking that you can keep spending money this way and there's no consequences. Wake up. Don't lie to yourself. God can't be mocked. Let me just explain that sentence to you. God can't be mocked. Why is that in there? It's basically saying God designed the world. And let's go like organic. He talks about sowing and reaping. God is the one who designed all of the organics in our world and knows that if you plant an apple seed, an apple tree is going to grow. And if you plant a stinkweed seed, some gross weed is going to grow. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to change what grows from what gets sown. All you get to decide is what you're going to sow. God isn't going to be mocked. You are going to reap what you sow. That's just the nature of the world that you live in. It's a reality check for us. Wake up, don't be deceived. God has already designed the world. You will reap what you sow. And if you sow things that are gonna grow up and be healthy, good things later in your life, you're gonna enjoy them. And if you sow garbage now, you're gonna garbage later. To sow is to invest. And it's to make a tough decision. Some of you maybe, I don't know, are farmers, I don't know. Like farming is like you're plowing and you're doing all this stuff and you're not seeing anything, right? You know it's coming later. It's to make a decision now knowing that something better is coming later. So what are you investing in? What are you doing that's gonna pay off later? And this is the principle that he's giving us. And that principle is definitely true in our finances. If what you're currently investing is nothing, guess what you're gonna have in the future? Nothing. But it's also true here when it comes to like dealing with sexual issues and lust in your heart. Depending on what you're investing in now, that's gonna grow up later. Is what's gonna come up later in your life dysfunction and brokenness and failed relationships and failed marriages and addictions that are out of control? Or is what's gonna come up later in your life something healthy and good? And it's a principle that applies to so many areas of our lives. Even just last week, right? Murder. We said like, nobody starts with murder. Nobody goes like, fine, murder. To get to this point where you would abuse and kill another human being starts with something that you sowed a long time ago. Something that was maybe sowed in you and you just let it grow. And it just festers and right? And Jesus is saying, what if, instead of just letting that go and then waiting until it turns into this horrible weed that's hurting other people, what if you cut it off right now? Well, how would I do that, Jesus? You just forgive it. Chop it off and throw it away. And watch how much better your life's gonna be. Oh, they'll get away with it. Who cares? Chop it off. Otherwise, it's gonna grow inside of you and destroy you. God can't be mocked. Don't be deceived. Chop it off now. Forgive. Get rid of it. You know, I don't think anyone ever says to themselves when they're young, you know, I hope when I'm older, I'm just a miserable, greedy miser that nobody likes. That would be great. And yet, a lot of people end up being miserable, greedy misers that nobody likes. I would argue that you don't ever want to get there. You get there because it's what you've sown your whole life and now it's what you're reaping. Because day in and day out, you have opportunities to have stuff, your own money, your time, and you can choose. Do I sow this into myself and feeling good, and I just keep sowing it into myself and feeling good, thinking I'm walking on a path that just leads to gross brokenness? Or do I take this stuff and sow it into a different kind of life the way Jesus told me to? Do I choose generosity? I'm just gonna start giving stuff away. I'm gonna make myself available and free myself up for other people. I'm gonna sow that. And guess what comes up down the line? Better relationships, happier, healthy mental states. Studies have proven it, you guys. Again, it's not a financial talk, but studies have proven it. Generous people are more well-balanced, happier human beings, regardless of their religion. You're sowing something that God has already built into the fabric of our existence. Choosing to be a generous person, cutting off the selfishness now in these moments reaps something better down the line. And I see so often, I deal with myself, like this idea of like discontentment. I just, there's so many things I wish I had, and I look at other people and I'm like, oh, they have all this stuff, I want all this stuff. You always want more, you're never happy with what you have. You're like, oh, this stinks, why do I feel this way? And you're like, let's watch another one of those shows where other people show us their beautiful houses. I'm just gonna doom scroll social media and see everyone else's so-called amazing life for the next 6 hours. I just don't know why I'm so discontent though. You're sowing it and you're reaping it. And Jesus is saying, what if you just cut it off? If you can't be content with the house that you have, maybe it's time you stop watching the shows that make you discontent. Maybe it's like, I don't need to just look at everyone's life on social media because I'm sowing something that's reaping something I don't want in my life. So Jesus is like, just chop it off, gouge it out, get rid of it. And we find ourselves so racked by anxiety and fear, so much so. And look, I understand that the world is a bit of a crazy place right now. It is. Yes, it's a little wild out there. But do you realize sitting on your couch, binge watching cable news 24 hours a day is an investment you're making. You are minute by minute dropping money into a bank of worry and despair, and then you're so confused and wondering why you feel all this anxiety. Well, Pete, you don't understand. If I don't watch all the news, I won't be aware of what's going on. Oh no. Well, okay, what's next? During COVID, I just cut off, I deleted all the news apps off my phone. I don't really follow that closely. And you're like, oh, you're our pastor. You should know everything that's going on in the world. Should I? So I can stand up here and give you dumb opinions I don't understand, like everybody else, and be all anxious and worried about it, like, oh, the sky's falling, we're all gonna die. No, Pete, if I don't know what's going on in the world, how will I win arguments on Facebook? That's just more anxiety. What are you doing? What if you just said, you know what? I'm just cutting this off. I don't need this in my life. Oh, I'm so depressed and just sad all the time. I'm gonna go watch 9 more Hallmark movies that make me sadder. Paint my fingernails black and listen to emo music. Oh, I'm so angry. Just sowing. And this is what Jesus is putting before us regarding lust and these uncontrolled, this sort of unchecked sexual thoughts and behaviors. What Jesus is doing in this passage, just to be clear, he's not trying to convince these people that God has a plan for you sexually. They already knew that. And we did a whole thing on that in the fall. If you're, I don't know if God, that's a whole, what he's talking to people who already know that God has a plan for them sexually. It's better. But he's looking at people who are like not understanding that it's not just about not breaking this one rule. It's about thinking differently about how you're gonna live your life. That don't commit adultery isn't the law and everything up to it is fine. He's saying that's just the final act that shows something unhealthy has already taken root and been sown, and now you're dealing with consequences. So take this seriously. Take corrective, like preemptive action. Chop it off now, get rid of it. Cut some things out before they fester. Live like no one else now. Oh, but no, they'll just call me a prude and all that. Like, live like no one else now. And I know this is a very sensitive, difficult topic. And even talking about it can sometimes create a sense of like, oh, is God angry at me? Have I made mistakes? We've all made mistakes, you guys. The purpose of this is not to like condemn you or be like, oh, I've done some bad stuff. We've all done some dumb stuff. We've all made mistakes. We've all messed up. He's not angry at us. He's calling us to something different and better. And I feel that in my life. I want to live differently now so I can live differently later. I want to see my marriage last and see it be more blessed than what the standard of the world seems to say is normal. I don't want what the world's offering me. I don't want to fall into that category of another one of the 50% plus marriages that are broken and falling apart. And even maybe marriage isn't part of your story right now or maybe ever. This is still about you. Because the stuff that we allow to fester inside of us will affect who we are as people, how we think, how we behave. It'll affect things like anxiety, all this stuff. Jesus is saying, let me help you with it. And the best way to help sometimes is just saying, right now, let's cut it off. When I was younger, and if you've said this, whatever, it's okay. Someone says, I'm struggling with this. You just need to pray more. That's what you need to pray more. Can I just tell you guys, I believe in prayer. Prayer is powerful. Prayer works. If your retirement strategy is prayer, good stinking luck. How about saving and not wasting money should be your retirement strategy? Not just taking your money and spending it however the flip you want to, whatever feels good in the moment, and then 30 years down the line begging God to pull you out of a mess that you created by being dumb. And the same is true when it comes to sex. Oh God, please help me not do this. My thoughts are crazy. Well, you've spent the last month looking at porn every day. What do you expect yourself to be in now? What if we went back here and made some decisions now that kept you from getting to this point? You haven't invested in your marriage at all, and now you're wondering why you're struggling with all these feelings for another person. What if we came back all the way back here and said, what can I do right now in my marriage to start making it stronger so we never get to that point? That's what he's talking us to. And this isn't me just like preaching at you guys. I've lived this. I've had to take steps of making sure that my phone and my iPad and my computer all have passwords that my wife has. If your spouse can't log into your devices, your marriage is already in trouble. I've had to find other people I can talk to and be open about it. I've had to just literally delete stuff and put blocks on my phone so it can't even pop up. Now, I'm just a dude, right? I do this for a living, but we're in the same boat here. And maybe you're sitting there, you're like, oh, actually, this maybe sex-specific issues but like whatever it is in your heart, we all have these things that we're like keep struggling with, we keep falling for. And I think the question for us today is this: what sacrifice is God calling you to make now as an investment in your future? And maybe it is in this specific area, but maybe it's in finances. Maybe it's in just some of the anxiety or fear or anger like we talked about last week. I think there's always something that he's saying, hey, if you cut this out now, if you can chop this off right now, it's gonna be better for you long term. And again, and I'll end with this, it's so important that we hear this and we balance. God is not saying, when you start walking that path, you're ticking me off. Oh, I don't want to make God angry. That's not the story of the Bible. What makes God angry is seeing children that he loves ruin their lives. And when he's calling you and I to take extreme corrective action, he's not being a jerk. He's not like, you're so dumb. He's saying, no, I love you. And if you would listen to me, I can show you something better. And I know this is going to be hard in this moment. This is going to be tough. You're going to have to maybe give up some of your freedoms or some of your rights or things that might feel good in the moment. But I'm telling you, it's better. And if you'll just trust me, you can find it. So I asked our band to just give us some space. Just pick a song, sing it. Maybe this isn't resonating with you at all. That's okay. But I know there are some people in this room and even watching online. It might be related to what's going on in your own heart and mind in terms of sexual feelings or thoughts. It might be money or anything else. But I know that when God starts to bring this stuff to the surface, there's always these things that he's like, hey, this thing. When you hear it and when you feel it, number one, don't listen to the lie that the devil's telling you God's angry at you. Hear it as the truth of your loving Father wants to help you. And number two, like, oh, I've heard this like 18 times. Well, have you ever responded to it the other 17 times? Maybe today is the day that it's not just another church service, but it's a moment to say, actually, I'm gonna go home and do something different. I'm actually gonna make a change here. I'm gonna cut something off. I'm gonna gouge this out. I'm done with this stupid thing and I need to make a tough decision now. I need to decide I'm not going there anymore. I'm not talking to this person anymore. I'm not looking at that anymore. Now, in this moment, in setting up some real parameters and actual things that make it impossible to do it. That's important. But whatever it is, I want to give us just a few minutes to invite the Holy Spirit to speak. So you want, I want to invite you to stand, but during the song, you might even end up just wanting to sit. That's okay. We're just going to sing, and I want you to I want to encourage you. I can't make you encourage you to literally just be like, God, what is it? If I'm not hearing it right, is there something? And just have a moment to let him speak. If this is new for you and you're like, I don't know what's happening, it's okay. You can sit there quietly. It'll be over in a minute. But I'd actually encourage you, what if you took a chance? Maybe this is brand new. What if you took a chance and God, are you actually there? Would you speak? I believe that he does. So as the band comes, would you just maybe stand with me and let me just pray for us and we have a moment here. God, invite your voice. We invite it right now. That still, small voice in the back of our mind that can sometimes just sound like our own imagination, but so often I've heard you speak that way and it's changed my life. So often it's come in and said, Pete, this has to change, and you've shown me a way out, and it's brought healing and health. And so I just asked for that voice to come to us this morning. As we spend a moment with you, God, whatever it is, help us to hear and listen and respond and put your words into practice and make some tough decisions. And because you love us, because you're for us, we say yes to you, Jesus. We give you this moment.